A 12-year-old girl walked onto a stage with a stuffed rabbit and left as a millionaire. Darci Lynne's final performance earned more votes than any other in her show's 20-year history. But one famous judge doubted she was even singing at all, accusing her of faking the act. 3 years later, every date on her calendar vanished overnight, and the industry that made her famous stopped calling. What she did next reveals something most child stars never figure out. Before the bright lights and the puppet that would make her famous, Darci Lynne was just a quiet girl from Oklahoma City. She loved music. She loved to sing. But put her in front of an audience, and something inside her would freeze. Family and friends noticed it early. She had the voice. She just couldn't find the nerve to use it. Then, according to biographical accounts, something shifted. She was at a local church event when a ventriloquist took the stage. He moved his mouth just enough to speak, but never enough to give away the trick. The puppet seemed to have a life of its own. Something about it clicked for the shy girl watching from the crowd. She didn't want to sing alone anymore. She wanted a partner, a puppet. She asked her parents, and on her 10th birthday, in 2014, they gave her one. That same year, she signed up for a small local competition called Edmund's Got Talent. She had maybe a month to practice, 1 month to turn a birthday gift into an act. She won first prize. The win didn't stay local for long. Veteran ventriloquist Gary Owen heard about the 10-year-old and offered to train her. Vocal coach Tiana Plemons joined soon after. Within 2 years, a girl who once couldn't speak in front of her own classroom was rehearsing with professionals who had spent decades in the business. Nobody in her family knew it yet, but the real test, the one that would decide the rest of her life, was still 3 years away. Have you ever had to face a fear everyone around you said was impossible to beat? Tell us in the comments. 3 years later, in 2017, that same girl walked out under studio lights that made a local talent show look like nothing. She was 12 years old now. In her hands sat a rabbit puppet. On her face, barely any nerves at all, at least none that the cameras could catch. She began to sing. The song was Summertime, the old Gershwin classic, but her lips never moved. Every note came out of the rabbit's mouth instead, while she sat there smiling, looking almost bored by how easy she made it seem. The judges were not bored. Mel B slammed the golden buzzer, sending her straight to the quarterfinals. No public vote required, no waiting to see if America agreed. It was one of the fastest yes in the show's history. But not every judge was convinced. According to NBC's own retrospective coverage of the season, Simon Cowell later admitted his first thought was that the vocals had to be pre-recorded. He said it seemed impossible for anyone to hit those notes with a closed mouth. He wasn't whispering that doubt backstage. Either he said it on camera in front of millions of viewers. That skepticism didn't hurt her. It multiplied her. Clips of her singing without moving her lips spread across the internet within days. People watched over and over, trying to catch her cheating. Nobody ever did. Industry commentators started saying something bigger was happening. That a 12-year-old from Oklahoma was single-handedly reviving an art form that had been quietly dying out for years. From a distance, it all looked effortless. One perfect performance after another. But no amount of local trophies, no amount of practice in front of a mirror could have prepared a 12-year-old for the pressure of live television watched by an entire country. When finale night arrived, the votes came in faster than anyone at the network expected. According to NBC's official results coverage, her performance earned more votes than any act in the show's history up to that point. Not close. Not a nail-biter. The most votes, period. She won the $1 million grand prize. Along with it came a headlining engagement at Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas, a 12-year-old's name on a marquee built for adults. She beat out finalists including singer Angelica Hale and the dance crew Light Balance, performers who had spent the season being called the ones to beat. At 12 years old, she became one of only 2 people that young to ever win the show, tied with singer Grace VanderWaal. Only one winner had ever been younger, 11-year-old Bianca Ryan, back when the competition first began. The offers didn't wait. Within weeks, She was booked on The Ellen DeGeneres Show. Interview requests poured in from outlets across the country, all wanting a piece of the girl and her rabbit. Reporters asked her the same questions over and over. She answered them the same way every time, still sounding, somehow, like a regular kid. On paper, it read like a fairy tale. Middle school girl, painfully shy 3 years earlier, now a millionaire with a Vegas residency and a national spotlight. But fairy tales don't usually mention what comes after the ending. She had only been performing in public for 3 years. Nobody hands a 12-year-old a manual for what happens when the whole country knows your name. The competition was over. The bigger test, the one that had nothing to do with puppets, timing, or golden buzzers, was just getting started. If you want to see how child stars actually navigate life after reality TV fame, subscribe. This story is far from over. By December 2018, the momentum showed no sign of slowing. She had her own primetime special on NBC, sharing the stage with artists like Lindsey Stirling, Toby Keith, and Pentatonics. A 12-year-old ventriloquist was now getting billing next to Grammy-nominated musicians. To anyone watching from the outside, it looked like the beginning of an unstoppable career. Then 2019 arrived, and with it, the first real crack in the story. She returned to the franchise for America's Got Talent. The Champions, a season built to bring back the best acts the show had ever produced. This time, the votes didn't come easily. She didn't advance on the first pass. Instead, she needed a wild card save just to keep her spot in the competition. The same girl who once broke a voting record now fighting just to stay in the room. She made it all the way to the finals, but when the results came in, she placed second behind magician Shin Lim. According to the show's own results coverage, it was the first real signal of something nobody wanted to say out loud. A ventriloquist act built around a single rabbit puppet might have a shorter shelf life than expected in an industry that runs on novelty and always wants the next new thing. Offstage, none of it looked like decline. She toured nationally, performing live for thousands of fans a year, selling out venues across the country. The applause never stopped. But no matter how many tickets sold, no matter how many cities she played, every marquee outside, every theater still read the same 3 words: The Puppet Girl. Then, in 2020, everything stopped at once. The pandemic shut down live entertainment almost overnight, and every date on her national tour disappeared within weeks. Venues closed. Tickets got refunded. The calendar that had been packed solid for years was suddenly empty. According to an interview she gave to American Songwriter, there was no stage to walk onto and no puppet act to fall back on. For the first time since she was a shy kid in Oklahoma City, she had nothing scheduled. No shows, no tour bus, no countdown to the next city. So she turned to something she had never talked about publicly, songwriting. It wasn't new. She admitted she had quietly been writing songs for 4 years, long before anyone outside her inner circle knew about it. While the world saw a ventriloquist with a rabbit, she had been filling notebooks in private, working on something that had nothing to do with puppets at all. At 19 years old, she described herself simply as someone still figuring out who she wanted to be. She even joked that she couldn't fully categorize the music she was making. It didn't fit neatly into any one genre, and for once, that seemed to be the point. Her second single arrived soon after, Corriton with Shane Henry and Maggie McClure. The sound was nothing like anything her puppet, Petunia, had ever performed. No character voice, no comedic timing built around a stuffed animal. Just her, singing as herself, for the first time in her entire public career. It should have felt like a fresh start. In some ways it was, but it also raised a question nobody could answer yet. Would the audience that fell in love with a 12-year-old and her rabbit follow her into a chapter that didn't include either one? Maybe you've had a moment where everything you built got put on pause, and you had to figure out who you were without it. Sound familiar? In 2022, she took her first real acting role, playing Brooke Mays in the Netflix film A Cowgirl Song. No puppet on her hand this time, just her on screen, carrying scenes the same way she'd once carried a stage. 2 years later, in 2024, she landed a small cameo in the biopic Reagan, sharing the screen with actor David Henry. It was a brief appearance, but it added another line to a resume that had started stretching well past ventriloquism. That same year, she stepped back onto the AGT stage as a contestant on America's Got Talent, Fantasy League. It had been almost 7 years since her original win. The loop finally closing, the 12-year-old and the 20-something meeting on the same stage where it all began. None of this was really new, if you go back far enough. As far back as a 2017 interview with the Oklahoman, she had already said she didn't want to be remembered as just the puppet girl. She wanted to be seen as a full performer, a singer and actress, eventually someone capable of Broadway-caliber work. At 12 years old, she already knew the label she'd been given wasn't the whole story. By 2026, in her early 20s, she was headlining an expanded U.S. tour, Darci Lynne and Friends. Up close and personal, the puppets were still there. Petunia still made appearances, but now the set list carried a songwriting catalog that belonged entirely to her. No character, no borrowed voice. The girl, who once couldn't sing in front of her own classroom, had spent a decade quietly proving that a single label, given at 12 years old, was never going to be the end of her story. Her story is only one of dozens from that stage. Next, we're covering the AGT winner whose path, after the show, took a completely different turn. And it's one you won't want to miss.